The voice of Austin FC guest host this week as we talk about the craziest game of the year on another episode of Final Whistle ATX. The voice of Austin FC guest host this week as we talk about the craziest game of the year on another episode of Final Whistle ATX. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Final Whistle ATX. I'm Nick, this is Harley, and this is not Wyatt. Wyatt's actually behind the camera today.
Wyatt.
No Wyatt today.
No Wyatt.
We've got the voice of Austin FC, Adrian Healey.
Hey.
Adrian.
Welcome.
Cheers. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks for
Welcome
coming
back.
back. We didn't scare you the first time.
No, you didn't. I've been enjoying what you guys have done all season and been waiting for an invite back, to be honest. But eventually it came. I had to earn it, I know. But eventually.
We didn't have to pay too much, so that's okay.
No.
We planned your visit on our show before this crazy weekend game. And by the way, I should mention we're here at BD Riley's. What an insane game that was. You were commenting on it, and Harley was at the game.
Yeah.
So walk us through it for those that missed it. A tale of two halves, really.
Yeah, the ultimate tale of two halves. Is it the craziest game of the year? I think it probably was. I mean, the Dallas game was crazy, but had a different dynamic to it. This one was it was almost like the brakes came off in the first half. It was almost like a tantalizing look at what Austin FC could be in its finished product with everyone available. GT out there for the first time, Drusi playing behind him. They actually didn't start Cecilio Dominguez or Diego Fagundes for the first time, but that was an interest. And they played some fantastic football in that first half. They had a little ropey patch, didn't they, Harley, when San Jose equalized, but they fought through that, and that was what was great about that first half. In previous Austin games, we've seen them kind of collapse when they conceded the first, but they conceded the first and then came right back and re-established dominance. So at halftime, they were sitting pretty at 3-1. But
big but. And you had the bird's eye view. I kind of had the ground floor view. I was there in the supporters section, and I really like the way you described that first half in terms of what Austin FC could be, because I really think that hits the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Great movement, especially in the final third, especially that John Gallagher goal when there was all of that movement and Alex Ring getting in behind. It was just a joy to watch at times. And then the second half, the wheels come off. The last 20 minutes. The atmosphere, I don't know if you picked up on this, Adrian, but the atmosphere where I was sitting just went up several notches with Austin just chasing the game and Johan Romagna running the length of the pitch every 2 minutes. And it was just every push forward was met with a huge roar, and they just couldn't get over the line. But it was a great game to be at, even though we didn't get the right result.
even at 3-1 at halftime, I have to say, and I think I said this in commentary going into halftime and again at the start of the second half, I'm like, this has been Austin's Achilles heels, the first 5 to 10 minutes of the second half, all season long. Certainly for the last 2 to 3 months, it has been a pattern where they've come out and they haven't been able to pick up where they left off at the end of the first half. And this was, I didn't think they could actually take it a step further, but they did this time. And
Why do you think that is? Because if you're winning at 3-1, you can imagine what the halftime team talk would be. Either keep doing what you're doing, it's working, or, all right, let's maybe think about tightening up on defense. We don't need to go forward as much. But if it's been several games that the second half doesn't start well, you would think that would be something that would be brought up at halftime. Like, okay, we're starting the second half strong. Remember that this time.
Or do they not talk about it? Because it has been a thing, and then it almost becomes self-fulfilling prophecy if you actually kind of fixate on it. So I don't know if they talk about it after. What I do know is there's a pattern of them making changes, both personnel-wise and tactically at halftime, and it always seems to backfire. And
Sorry, Adrian. There was a little bit of a sense of here we go again, I think. And with that second San Jose goal, which was the first one after half-time, they really just sliced through the Austin defense very, very easily, made it look very straightforward, passed the ball into the net. And I certainly felt amongst the fans, and I don't think this was just me, but a sense of there could definitely be more goals in this game at the wrong end. And I don't know if the players felt that too, but I think with the way that they've been starting these second halves lately, maybe that does psychologically factor in.
Yeah. You almost want them just to sort of bunker in and play very basic for the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half. Just consolidate what you have. Don't take any chances. Keep the personnel as it was in the first half that got you into this position.
Yeah.
And then, get to 60 minutes and then, maybe make the changes. But making the changes you do at 45 minutes, it changes the rhythm and dynamic of a team. And I know there are reasons why those changes were made. But I was like, all those players that were brought off could have given you an extra 15 minutes. I'm convinced they could have done. We'll never know if that would have made the difference, but I suspect it would have done.
It wasn't necessarily the first game either that we've come out of the game questioning whether people were taken off too soon either.
Josh Wolf has been very tough on Danny Pereira.
Yeah.
Young player, one of my favorite players on the team, great to watch. Absolutely has a mistake in him, absolutely has a lapse of concentration in him, but in my opinion, more than makes up with the way that he breaks through the lines and his dribbling and his passing and his take-on ability. And we've seen Josh Wolf be harsh on Danny Pereira in terms of when he has made a mistake or when he's lost the ball 2 or 3 times, the leash is not long. And we saw Pereira come off at half-time, and I agree, Adrian, I think there's another 15 minutes or so. I know that he was on a yellow card, and I'm sure that factored into it.
Right. But you're trying to win a game. It's like, okay, you've got a player on a yellow card. He plays in midfield, but he can give you another 50 minutes. I totally agree. Danny Pereira is a classic example. He's someone who's been asked to be playing out of position pretty much the whole season. He's not a defensive midfielder. He really isn't. He never played that position in college, but he's being asked to play that role and kind of learn that role on the fly at the highest level. So, yeah, he's been one of the sacrificial lambs. John Gallagher has been another. I felt Gallagher should have probably stayed on longer than he did. Yeah. He changes the dynamic for this team when he's on, and he's an easy kind of target. He's an easy player to bring off because he's younger. He's not going to complain. That's the dynamic, and I think Josh is he's learning on the job too. He's learning how to manage games, and this team is still learning how to win games, despite having many individuals who are capable of winning games. As a team, they haven't learned how to yet.
Before we move on, I just want to talk a little bit about Diego Fagundes, because there was a lightning bolt of energy that went through where I was sitting for sure when he comes onto the pitch. And you just have to wonder if it was too late, because Fagundes has been, for me, I think now the player of the season, in my opinion. And when Cecilio Dominguez came on at half-time, there was not that same energy shock through the stands, at least. And I think that makes a difference. Yeah. And on one hand, you've got the designated player who should be one of the sparks of the attack, and on the other hand, this guy Fagundes, who is a redemption project who's worked out extremely well this season. And that's not the player that you would have expected would have that impact among the fans, but that's exactly what happened. And that was one of the reasons, I think, why Austin kicked on, was finally getting Fagundes on the field. He was probably due a little bit of a rest, but hindsight's a wonderful thing, and it's very easy to say, why wasn't he on earlier?
Yeah, and they gave us enough stoppage time. I think it was 9 minutes. So we were like, I know we could have said maybe if we had 5 more minutes, we maybe have put one over the line.
Yeah.
Speaking of some of the subs, Musa came off at halftime, but some positives from that game. He had a very good first half, and people are talking, as they say. Is he the number 9? Is he what we've been missing up top?
Well, he's what we haven't had the entire season. I mean, say what you will about Cecilio Dominguez. He's another player who's been playing out of position. He is not a number 9. He's been asked to play that the whole year.
Oh, yeah.
And through no fault of his own, he's done what he can.
Right.
But Musa he's just a classic target forward. He just gives you a different dynamic, not only just with what he does on the ball, but what attention he draws to himself, thus freeing up other. Opposing defenses have not had enough to worry about without a number 9. By just sticking him there, immediately those 2 centre-backs for the opposition have something completely different to worry about, and that opens up spaces for Driussi and Fagundes and Gallagher to exploit, which is what we saw in the first half, isn't it?
Yeah, I was watching with a friend who hadn't seen Austin FC live before. He's from San Antonio, massive soccer fan, came up to watch the game with me. And the word that I kept using to describe Musa GT was a handful. I think I must have said it like 5+ times, because as much as us fans and us commentators didn't know what to expect from Musa GT because we haven't seen him play, you can be sure that San Jose had no idea. So this guy coming onto the pitch, they don't know how to defend him. He threw his body around. He got in the way. He was a beautiful nuisance. Beautifully chaotic 45 minutes from GT, just really, really dangerous. Nick, you ask if we found a number 9. I think we found 2 of them because he's 99, number 99. So that's my joke of the week. Thank you very much. But no, I walk out of that game feeling very, very hopeful. It was a shame that we only got to see 45 minutes. I get it, because he's not played much. He's probably not match fit. I think we saw him struggling a little bit before he came off at halftime anyway. Yeah. But that was a really, really good, promising taste. And I want to see so much more over the last
he was cramping up. But I still think, get some electrolytes in him, get him out there for another 15 minutes. Yeah. Keep things as they are. I mean, what are you trying to protect at this point? It's like, come on, we need a win. And the tragedy is, I think GJ's going to get better and better and fitter just as the season's coming to an end. It's when he'll be peaking. So then he'll have to go through another off-season. But very excited. I think he's got the potential. I don't know if he's going to be a prolific goal scorer in this league, but if he gets you 10 goals and his presence helps you get another 10 elsewhere, then that's all you want from a number 9.
A lot of people after the end of the game were talking about a moment that Brad Stuver had where he basically clobbered into one of the San Jose players in retaliation for them pushing one of ours into the net as we were trying to restart. What do we think? Do we think it was a morale-boosting, protect your team moment, or do you think it could have been way worse for them and it wasn't worth the temporary satisfaction?
First of all, Adrian, I loved your call on this. There was a viral clip that's going around of Brad Stuver just trocking this guy like he's a running back. And Adrian's call is basically, well, he's going to get sent off. What's he doing that for? And I liked it because I had the same reaction. There was people around me that were cheering because I think because they wanted to see some fight, some passion, and it was 100% those things. And I'm standing there going, why are you cheering? He's going to get sent off. Well, there's absolutely no hope if we lose Brad Stuver in this game. Right. And then the yellow card comes out and I join in the cheering in the supporter section. So like I said a few minutes ago, hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's very easy to say maybe that sparked the team, and because he survived and didn't get that red card, that it worked out. But oh my goodness, I think he should have seen red.
Yeah, it was one of those live, seeing it happen in real speed. I was like, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he just clattered into him like a truck. But then seeing it on replay, he actually didn't hit him. He kind of just ran into it. It was still. I mean, you wouldn't have batted an eyelid had he been sent off.
Right.
But I could almost see why the referee, made it yellow. It was marginal.
And I didn't even see him go over to look at the sideline monitor or anything. It was purely what he was being told in his ear, and then gives yellow to both. So someone must be coaching him and saying, he did this because of this, and therefore yellows, maybe.
I think he is. I mean, you've heard Josh Wolf in recent weeks talking about the lead for. He's been talking about 2 or 3 different things: speed, intensity, but leadership is something he's been harping on about. Want to see more. Want to see more from the guys on the field. And I think Stuver is one of those guys that has taken that to heart. I mean, the game before against LAFC, he had a set 2 with their forward Chicho, and we haven't seen that out of Stuver all year. So suddenly he's taken that on board and become super Stuver. Like, don't mess with me.
Yeah, I mean, the way it worked out, I think we're all kind of happy at that aggression. But had it been another red, it would the goals. Yeah,
I mean, you got to. There's a fine line, isn't there? A really fine line. It's like, you can be a leader and you can be aggressive, but you can't be stupid.
Let's talk about what we have left to play for. I was reading some statistics about even if we win all of the rest of our games, it's not in our hands to qualify for playoffs. So if we just write out the fact that playoffs are probably out, what are we playing for now?
Right.
The future of some of the players, the coach. Are we just playing good, try and improve so that we start next season better? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's all of the above, Nick. I mean, the playoffs are done. It's not going to happen. So it's all about what can we do that helps us next year the most now over this last nine games? And, is the plan the right one? And if it is the right one, do we have the right pieces in place? And if we don't, what other pieces do we need? And all those questions can start to be asked, and if not answered, we'll get some clues over the next few games. I think Josh Wolf, they need to win. Even though the points tally is not going to be enough to make the playoffs, they need to get some wins just to sort of imbue some confidence into this team that this is the right system. And they know there are going to be changes, and there's a lot of players probably who are playing for their Austin futures over the next few weeks. So there's actually a lot to play for.
Some fans are questioning the coaching staff, and I totally get it. And I think the coaching staff has something to prove over the last 9 games. I want to see them. Sounds silly, but I want to see them trying to win games, especially at home.
Sure.
I think there are some players that we as fans have seen enough of. I think there are some that we want to see more of. I want to see more of players like Rodney Redders, who could either kick on over the last 9 games and look like a starter going into next season, or he's somebody that is really fallen off the map.
Yeah.
I want to see more of Zan Kolmanic, who has been one of my favourite players of the season, who's a young guy who I think is part of this team's future. Hasn't played as much lately, but I want to see him getting those games over somebody like Hector Jimenez, who's an older guy who is not part of the long-term plan. I would like to see him around next season, but he's not going to be in Austin in 3 or 5 years. And Adrian, this is taking this a little bit sideways, but the MLS just needs relegation. and I know it's never going to happen. Well, and as an Austin FC fan, I do not want to be watching a relegation battle right now. It's not good for the blood pressure.
Right.
But I want to have something on the line these last 9 games.
Yeah.
And that goes for a lot of teams, plenty of teams across the MLS, not just Austin.
Well, we're battling to avoid the wooden spoon. I mean, there's Toronto in the East are the only other team down, and they're only a point behind us now. So to build on what you were saying, also a chance to actually see the best starting 11 in their natural positions out there. And I feel like we've seen so little of that, if at all, this season for Austin, for a variety of reasons. Let's have a game with Driussi behind Gite up front, with Cecilio Dominguez on the left, maybe Diego Fagundes on the right. The best 2 midfielders, the number 1 defense. We haven't had that in a single game.
And we need more consistency, too. We've gone one game winning, losing 3, 1 winning.
Yeah.
I think everyone who's a fan of Austin FC, they just want to see progress. I mean, we started the season almost too well for our own good.
Yep.
And I don't know if we could say that they're better now than they were at the beginning. They have better players now, and I think if we put our ideal starting 11 in, it's better than it was.
Yep.
But we're not seeing the slow and steady improvement that you would want for a brand new team.
Yeah, consistency. That's another sort of touchstone word that Josh Wolf is using. He is desperate to see some consistency out of the team, and a chance to do it over the last few years. If they can string 2 or 3 wins together back to back, that goes a long, long way, especially if it's with a lot of the players who could be starters together next year.
Yeah,
so.
we've seen 4 or 5 games this season where Austin looks like an absolute playoff team in every way. But that's the problem. The problem is we're in September and we've seen 4 or 5 games where Austin's looked like a playoff team, and about 20 where they haven't looked at the races. So I want to see consistency, absolutely. Best players on the pitch, like you said, Adrian. And I want to see some success, because everybody involved with the club deserves it, and it will show that the direction that this team is going in is the right one.
Just as well, there's no relegation. They'd be down to the USL playing against the Austin Bowl. Would
maybe
be a derby,
2 tiers
I guess,
of MLS, maybe like an MLS A and an MLS B.
Right. That could happen. Seriously, that's the way that happens in next 5 or 10 years. When you get to a certain number of teams and have MLS 1 and 2, get rid of East and West.
I'll spend the off-season writing a strongly worded letter to the front office, and we'll see what happens.
That'll make
no
a difference
promises
there. Adrian, before we go, a quick preview of this Sunday night's game.
So, the LA Galaxy coming to town. Their one and only visit to Q2 Stadium. Chicharito and company. They've been wobbling a little of late. So, for most of the year, the top 3 or 4 of the West have kind of separated themselves, and the LA Galaxy were one of those teams. But they're coming here, I think, on the back of 3 straight defeats, or maybe 1 point in the last 3 games. They just got hammered by Minnesota, so they'll be kind of desperate for a win on Sunday night. And it seems a long time ago now that we played there, and it was in May, mid-May, and it was Saturday afternoon game. It was the first game that was really kind of it was like a 2-0 defeat, and we really didn't do much. So I think the Galaxy are they're just a heavyweight name and always have been in the league. So there's plenty of incentive for Austin to go out there and put on a show in front of the national cameras as well, because it's an ESPN game, which means I get the night off. So,
so that's important.
And talking about, just very quickly, the last 20 minutes of that San Jose game, there was a lot that was crazy about that. There were no tactics going on at all. It was just pure chaos as Austin lumped the ball forward trying to get that equalizer. And really, when you've got 10 men and you're up against it, then I totally understand playing like that. I want to see them continue what we saw in the last 20 minutes in terms of the passion, in terms of the hunger, in terms of the desire, in terms of the supporter section almost trying to suck the ball into the net. If they can continue what we saw, not necessarily from the whole tactic side of it and the 2-4-3 formation or whatever it was we saw, which was, again, beautifully chaotic. If they can keep up that passion from the end of that last game, then only good things can happen. So I just really hope that's what we see.
I suspect Beasley will be back, which will certainly help out at the back.
Big boost, big boost.
But there'll be no ring this weekend.
No, there will not. He actually missed the last Galaxy game too. I think maybe in his contract he has to get sent off just before a Galaxy game. Doesn't get to play against him. But.
There you go. Well, Adrian, thank you so much for joining us for another episode. We won't leave it as long next time.
No.
Yes.
Well, maybe we'll do an end of season wrap up.
Hey.
There you go.
That sounds
Come
good
back
to me.
to that.
So we'll be back next week with another episode of Final Whistle ATX. We'll see you then.